Hey guys, Rollout or Taylor here, and today I'm back with another Division 2 news video. Now before I do get into this one, I just want to say thank you for all of the nice comments on the previous Division 2 news video. It was received really well and it seemed like you guys want a lot more of these, so I am going to try and produce these a lot more. Obviously that's only possible if we get the news from the Division or Ubisoft or wherever it comes from. But I will make sure I have one of these up at least every 2 weeks. But anyway, let's get straight into the video. Now the first bit of news I want to get into revolves around Roosevelt Island. Now if you watched a previous video of mine called 5 things you might have missed in the Division 2's world, then this was one of the things I brought up in that video. The possibility of visiting Theodore Roosevelt Island in Washington DC. Well, we now know that it's not a possibility, it's actually going to happen. In the Division 2, we're going to be able to visit Theodore Roosevelt Island. The island densely populated by trees as well as a few hiking routes. In an article on the PC Gamer website, this is what lead level designer Manny Diaz has to say. Roosevelt Island is a location we're going to feature. Roosevelt Island is forested, people go walking there, people go hiking, and for us it's a mysterious place. Now like I've said before, and it'd be interesting if we started on Roosevelt Island just like we do in the Division 1 where we start in Brooklyn and then travel over to the mainland. What if Roosevelt Island is that stepping stone into Washington DC? Just an idea. I think it would be really cool and it would definitely throw us right into the deep end into a completely new environment and setting than we're used to. If that is the case, I'm going to try not to get attached to it too much because I got way too attached to Brooklyn, and every time I played the game I always wished for the option to travel back to Brooklyn and explore it a little bit more. Now staying on the topic of the map, we all know that Division 2's Washington DC is recreated to a 1-to-1 scale, but it's actually going to be split up into 6 distinct regions. In an article on IGN called 5 Things We Learned About the Division 2 During Gamescom 2018, they went on to say the following. The Division 2 sprawling map of Washington DC is separated into 6 distinct environments. The suburbs of Georgetown, residential areas more akin to the setting of the first game, a downtown commercial zone that's home to the hulking sporting arena, the government section with the White House and the Lafayette Square, the mall which is home to the more iconic landmarks like the Lincoln Memorial and the Washington Monument, as well as the Air and Space Museum, and finally the surrounding forest lands, which presented the most challenging area to craft as far as maintaining the feel of the combat established in the first game. And Manny Diaz went on to say the following regarding the forest areas. I cannot stress enough how much a departure from the previous game the natural regions of the Division 2 present. In the first game, you're taking cover behind cars, buildings and concrete roadblocks, and we needed to preserve that style of gameplay within a forest environment. So that was a problem to solve, but I do think we cracked the nut. And I think we've really been able to make the most out of the terrain and the undulating elevation in the forest areas, and we've been able to craft organic sandboxes for cover-based shooting that makes sense. Now this gets me super excited because we had pretty little or almost no elevation whatsoever in the Division 1, apart from buildings and things like that, but the possibility of us having hills, rivers, lakes, things like that has me super excited for the inner explorer, and honestly I just can't wait to jump in and really explore this beautiful world that they've created for the Division 2. Now moving on from the Division 2's core game, it's time we speak about the future of the Division 2 and more importantly the Year 1 plans. Now let me just refresh you that Julian Goretti has already announced that all major game updates for the Division 2, specifically Year 1 updates, are going to be free. And we might have more of an idea of what those DLCs are going to contain. Now for the Division 1, Massive assumed that DLC should focus on adding new game modes, but during that time they soon learned that players were more hungry for additional content, including new areas and missions that could be played solo. David Polfelt, the managing director of Ubisoft Massive, had the following to say in regards to what players wanted as DLC for the Division 1. It was actually a bit surprising for us because we weren't expecting that at all. Sometimes you see these big strategic data points that actually transforms how we think about the game. Others are just fine details and you can find any manner of things in between those. Now obviously that doesn't give us a clear idea of what's expected in these DLC packs that we're going to be getting for year 1 of the Division 2, but to me it sounds like it's going to be more than just game modes. Now obviously it's way too early to assume what we're going to be getting as DLC, but even this little bit suggests that they're not just going to be focusing on extra game modes, let's say for PvP. Personally, to me it sounds like we could be getting some major map expansions as well as solo content. I'm sure we're just going to have to wait a little bit longer and we'll hear some more news closer to launch. But guys, what would you be happy with in terms of DLC? Let me know below. Now I know we've just talked about the future of the Division 2, but let's rewind and talk about something that's going to be happening before the launch of the Division 2, that being the planned betas. Now I'm sure you're all well aware that you can actually sign up for a closed beta now on the Division 2's website. But that's not the only beta that's going to be available to us as players. If you pre-order the game, you'll actually have access to a private beta as well as the closed beta. This was announced in last week's State of the Game. Now how it's going to work is the private beta is going to come first, and if you pre-order the game you'll have access to that, and then at a later date the closed beta will be available to players that pre-order as well as the players that signed up via the website. So even if you're unsure and don't fancy pre-ordering the game yet, then you're still going to have a chance to play the game via the closed beta. That is of course if you get an invite via the signing up process. Now last but not least, what's going to happen to the Division 1 once the Division 2 launches? Now again, via GameIndustry.biz, Ubisoft stressed that the launch of the Division 2 does not necessarily mean the original will instantly be shut down, with another spokesperson telling us that Massive will be supporting the Division in the long term. Polfeld is particularly keen to see how well the first game fares after the sequel is released, adding, "Part of me thinks maybe the Division should remain live and the Division 2 is an alternative path for some players. I don't know what will happen, but I think we need to remain very open-minded about that." Obviously, the Division 1 servers won't shut down as soon as the Division 2 launches. That would just be damn right silly. But I can't see any major updates for the Division 1. Possible bug fixes here and there, maybe updates like we've just had with update 1.8.3, but I can't see too much. I'm sure it's still going to be supported, but like I said, I just can't see any major updates, especially with them taking resources from the Division 2 teams to actually bring back into the fold of the Division 1 to make update 1.8.3. Obviously, it would be cool if I was wrong and they did have some major updates planned going forward with both the launch of the Division 2 as well as the life of the Division 1. I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how that pans out. Now, I know that was a lot of information and I'm sorry if it dragged on a little bit. I always try to keep my videos as short as possible and this is the shortest I could make this one. Guys, if you enjoyed this video or found it helpful in any way whatsoever, then please let me know by either leaving a comment or by clicking that like button. And if you're new around here and want to stay up to date with all of the things the Division and the Division 2, then please make sure to subscribe. But as always, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.